Hello, my name is Jin. I'd like to introduce AnimClick. AnimClick is an animation UI tool, runs in Autodesk Maya. It is made for both animators and technical artists. It allows users to create buttons and sliders to easily select objects, keyframe them, reset them, pose and mix and more. Let me demonstrate some unique features. When you are using one of those typical picker tools, what you would do is you would select object like this and then drag and drop a button. From there, when you click on a button, it will select the object. Now, imagine that you have to do the same thing over and over for every single one of these. In AnimClick, there's a much faster way of doing it. Let me demonstrate. I'm going to remove this button first. Select multiple objects. If I drag and drop one button like this, whenever I click on it, it will select multiple objects. But if I use my magic hotkey, it will create multiple buttons horizontally. If I want, I can create multiple buttons vertically. So each button will select each object like this. But what if I want to do create multiple buttons for all of this at once? Here's how to do it. I'm going to increase the map size like this. Using my magic hotkey, drag and drop. Boom. Now each button will select each object. This is called capture function. It will capture all the objects positions based on your camera view, and then it will create multiple buttons. And in AnimClick, every button comes with a set up pop-up menu. So if I right click on it, it will give me the commands that I can choose. For example, I can keyframe it. So if I select it, you can see it's keyframed. If I move it around, if I want to reset the values, I can go reset transform. Also, I have a remote editing tool where I can change the color of it. So I'm gonna change the color. I'm gonna pick it from the view here so that it matches the color. I can scale up using arrow buttons like this. I can say my pink button. I can label it. I can move it around. I can change the nudging size so I can move pixel by pixel. I can save it out. And if I want to change the layout, I can use my mouse to change the layout like this. But also in AnimClick, I can use geometry. Whenever I click this button, it will give me the geometry mode. Once I click it, I have geometry looking exactly like the button layout. So in here, I can use my move tool. I can use my scale tool if I want to. I can say if I want to align them horizontally, I can use the button like this. If I want to have an average gap between the buttons, I can use this tool. I'm going to set the same scales like this. I can always use channel box to set the same values for the translates like this. And if I click this map button, it will transfer all the changes that I made here in the geometry mode to the map layout. Boom. Now you can see the instant result. I can always go back and forth. Scale down, going back to the map, I get the change. Now I have each button to create each object here. But what if I want to have one button that selects every one of these as a group? I can go back to the geometry mode, select the buttons, click one group button right there. It will create one group button like this. I'll go back to the map layout. So whenever I click this guy, it will select the whole thing. I can always go back to the geometry mode. I can change the size of it if I want to. Go back to the map. To increase the readability of the layout, I can do some more. In AnimClick, there's a mid-ground. Background will be this map in the background. The foreground buttons are the buttons. The mid-ground is between foreground buttons and the background image. In this case, I'm only using the solid color for the background. Go to geometry mode. I can use a curve tool and say from here to there, I'm going to make lines like this. Hit the inner key. As soon as I click this button, it will create mid-ground lines. Go back to the map layout. Voila, I get the lines there. And in AnimClick, making an icon image is very easy and quick. You just have to aim the camera like this. Maybe I'll tweak the angle like this. I'm going to change the size of it. Maybe I'll give, say, 120, 120. Then I'm going to browse it. I'm going to name it as AnimTest PNG. Choose. Now if I click this button, boom, I get the image file right there. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger like this, reframe it like that. And from there, if I just drag and drop onto a button, it will just assign it right away. In AnimClick, it offers 6 different basic commands plus your own custom command. And let me demonstrate a couple of those. I'm going to move it around, rotate it, and I'm going to create a new button. The command will be pose. So if I create a button like this, it will give me the button plus slider and with the default reset button. So what it does is, if I want to go back to the neutral pose, if I click on the reset button, it will go back to the default pose. If I click on the pose button, it will go back to the pose. I can use this slider, make in between pose. And also, I already have made a plane shape for this. So if I look at this attribute here, I can trigger this plane shapes. When I select a channel in the channel box, I can create a range button. What it does is, if I create a new button like this, it will give me button and reset button and slider looking pretty much similar to the pose button. But what it does is, it will give me the range slider. So I can move this slider up and down. Whenever I click the button, it will give me the maximum value of the attribute, like this. And I can also reset this. And if I want to rearrange these buttons, I can do exactly the same thing as I would do with other buttons. Sliders and the reset buttons will follow automatically. And whenever I click this button, it will save all the changes to the node. The AnimClick map is stored in two different ways. One, you can save it as a node in Maya scene, or you can export out the data file. Let me demonstrate. So I'm going to go to a directory where I want to save the file. I'm going to go my data, export out. And if I bring up my favorite text editor, I can just drag and drop this data file. If you take a look at this, this is very human readable. Because this is all readable text, you can combine buttons from other data files. You can remove them, you can rename them, you can use search and replace function to change certain strings. You can do whatever you like. So that was the brief introduction of AnimClick. In the following videos, I will talk about all the details, step-by-step tutorials. Whenever you click on this button, it will take you to the website where you can find all the tutorial movie files and documentation, all the downloadable links. I hope you enjoy using AnimClick. Happy animating and happy rigging.